celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The one single most important event in all of human history. The most glorious day of all. But when you think about why God chose such a glorious event to take place in a form that is so glorious as well, we have no other explanation other than because of His love. Right? There is really no other explanation why Jesus had to go through what He went through to bring us what we don't deserve and to give it up to us in abundance. There is no other explanation other than His great love. His love to the uttermost. And this whole week, as a church, we have been meditating through this small devotional called Love to the Uttermost. And this has been our theme for this week, to ponder and to give ourselves to why. To answer the question why God took up that cross and why He had to suffer in such a manner so glorious. And it is all because of His love for us. Well, to ponder about His great love, I want to take you to one of the greatest love story of all in the Old Testament. The story of Hosea is the story that I want us to be this morning, just meditating just briefly. This story of Hosea, I don't know if you're familiar. If you're not familiar, you will be rather shocked because it is a radical love story in the Old Testament. And God wanted to visually show His people how much He loves all of us. So in the book of Hosea, He commands prophet Hosea, a man of God, to go marry a special person, a particular woman, and the Bible describes her a woman of whoredom, a woman with deeply rooted inclination to adultery. And some even say that she was a prostitute. But either case, this woman was an unfaithful woman that God told Hosea to go find and marry. An unfit woman for not only unwholesome marriage, but any kind of marriage for that matter. So let me read to you from Hosea chapter 1. And just listen to it as a story. As a story, it is rather shocking story of love. It says, Hosea 1 verse 2, it says, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the prophet of God, the Lord said to Hosea, go take yourself a wife of whoredom, and have children of whoredom. For the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord. I mean, pardon the language here. We're not so used to hearing it explicitly. But think of it as you're watching, Netflix with, those warnings, explicit language, right? He says, and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord. So he went and took Gomer, that's her name, the daughter of Debalim, and she conceived and bore him a son. And the Lord said to him, call his name Jezreel, for in just a little while I will punish the house of Jehu, the blood of Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. And on that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. She conceived again and bore a daughter. And the Lord said to him, call her name No Mercy. For I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel to forgive them at all. But I will have mercy on the house of Judah, and I will save them by the Lord their God. I will not save them by bow or by sword or by war or by horses or by horsemen. When she had weaned No Mercy, that's her name, she conceived and bore a son. And the Lord said, call his name Not My People, for you are not my people, and I am not your God. What a radical story. Right? God calls a man of God and says, go find yourself a woman of unfaithful inclination and marry, and not only that, have 3 children, and each of them God gives them a very painful name. Can you imagine the heartbreak of a father naming your children, no mercy, not my people, to show that the nation of Israel was unfaithful unto the Lord. But the story is just beginning. It takes a wild turn the very next chapter. If you look at Hosea chapter 2, verse 5, it says this about Gomer, the wife. It says, "For their mother has played a whore. She who conceived them has acted shamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink." So even after her marriage, even after they bear 3 children, she runs off. And she finds other lovers. It says lovers in plural, not just one, but multiple lovers. And she said, I will go to those people who will give me what? My bread, my water, my wool, my flax, and my oil, and my drink. So you can feel Hosea's heartbreak, right? I mean, he did not marry this woman of unfaithful inclination, but God commanded him to, and he does, and yet this woman runs off to other men. And if you have been married, this will hit you in a different level, right? It will tear you apart. It will destroy you. The unfaithfulness of your wife. And then verse 8 of chapter 2, it says, "And she did not know that it was I who gave her the grain, the wine, the oil, and who lavished on her silver and gold, which they use for Baal." Right? She didn't realize that all the gifts that she has been receiving, the things that she wanted to pursue in verse 5, the bread, the water, the wool, the flax, and the drink, she didn't realize that it was actually Hosea giving it to her. She was giving it to her. He was lavishing it on her with silver and gold. And what did she do? She brought all that to Baal. And if you know Baal, if you know a little bit about the Old Testament history, this is a pagan god. This is a pagan god who has been known for a long history of a vicious and vehement opposition to the God of Israel. They were the pagan gods of the Canaanite people, and they were quite licentious in their worship of Baal, because Baal was the god of fertility for them. So you can imagine the form of their worship. You know, they had a lot of sensuality actually built into their form of worship. And they were also quite violent as well. The pagan worship of the Canaanite land at that time, there were a lot of bloodshed to sacrifice their own selves, but not only that, they would sacrifice their own children at the altar of Baal. So this was the god, the pagan god that the Lord hated, and that Israel was told to stay away from. And that Gomer, with the love that she has received from her husband, she brought all that to Baal. This is a picture of Israel and their unfaithfulness to the Lord. Even though she was the rightful wife of Hosea, in her unfaithfulness, she turned to other lovers, namely other gods. Other gods. But the story doesn't end here. The gift that was brought to Hosea, even though it seemed like it was all wasted, and he ran out of good things to give, God commands him, no. Even though she took all the good things from you and she wasted away in worshiping the world, the god of the false god, I still have more to offer to the people of God. Look with me, verse 13 of chapter 2. This is what the Lord has commanded. Well, this is what has happened in the form of her worship. Hosea 2, verse 13. This is what everything boils down to in front of the God, in front of our God. It says, "And I will punish her for the feast days of the Baals, when she burned offerings to them, and adorned herself with the ring and jewelry, and went after her lovers, And what was the bottom line of all this? And forgot me, declares the Lord. So ultimately the judgment is the forgetting of God. Forgetting the goodness of Hosea as her husband. And she's saying, and God is saying, her ultimate judgment was for her forgetting the goodness of the Lord. And yet God's mercy doesn't stop there. The very next verse, God says, the story doesn't end here. The story doesn't end here. Before I go on, isn't this the picture? I'm sorry, I hope I'm not offending anybody here. This is the picture of God. Hosea is a picture of God. An imagery, a preview of the greatest love of all that God is bringing forth through the Son, Jesus Christ. And you and I are a picture of Gomer, unfaithful to the Lord. We were created by God in His image for a communion, for a fellowship with God, for a relationship, a wholesome relationship with the Lord, receiving all the goodness, receiving the blessing, being His children. And yet, we are unfaithful. We are unfaithful. We turn to the world. We turn to the shining things that the world offers to us. The things that seem like they will satisfy us. We turn, but what is the ultimate bottom line? What is the sin that we commit by turning to the world for the things to satisfy ourselves? We reject God and we forget God. And God says, for that, there is wrath. For that, there is judgment. For that, I have to punish you because I am a perfectly just God. But ironically, the very next verse is a verse that I want us to hold on to this morning. It's the Lord's Day. It's the Resurrection of Sunday. And this is what God declares to all of us. Read with me verse 14 through verse 18, if you can. Hosea chapter 2, verse 14 through 18. Let's read together. Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. And there I will give her her vineyards. I will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. And there she shall answer as in the days of her youth, as at the time when she came out of the land of Egypt. And in that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband, and no longer will you call me my Baal. For I will remove the names of the Baals from her mouth, and they shall be remembered by name no more. And I will make for them a covenant on that day with the beasts of the field, birds of the heavens, and the creeping things of the ground. And I will abolish and the bow, the sword, and the war from the land, and I will make you lie down in safety, says God. That's the great love that God has for you and for me. He says, yes, even though you're unfaithful over and over and over again, even though you still run to your lovers for the things that you feel like you are thinking that you are receiving from them, the good things, the oil, the cakes, the golden things, the shining things, the treasures of the world, not knowing even all that is from me. I was kind of like that too. I ran away from the Lord. Even though I grew up in the church, I forgot about God because I was pursuing what I wanted in my life. And in my painful past, God allowed me to go through many closed doors. God has allowed me to experience many failures to a point where I hit rock bottom. But in hindsight, it was all God's mercy. It was God's mercy bringing me back to Himself, only to make me realize I am nothing without God. I am wretched without God. All the things that I try to hoard, they do not satisfy me in the end. And God says, I will restore you. I will bring you back. God says, I will give you the vineyards, and I will make the valley of despair and judgment into a valley of hope. and I will restore her into the youth. Before the time she has committed unfaithfulness, I will restore her. And then he goes on to say this in verse 19. Powerful, powerful verse. He says, and I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice and steadfast love and in mercy. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord. And in that day I will answer, declares the Lord. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. And then I will skip down to verse 23. It says, and I will sow her for myself the land, and I will have mercy on no mercy. And I will say to not my people, you are my people. And he shall say, you are my God. So God is not only restoring Gomer, but he is out there to restore even the children. His mercy reaches down to the generations after all the sins have committed, symbolizing his mercy, his endless love, uttermost, reaching us to the uttermost. We are the people not deserving his love. We are Gentiles. None of us here are Jews here, by any chance, right? We are at the edge of his mercy. But God says, when I love you to the uttermost. It will reach far down. And then something amazing happens in Hosea 3. He says, the Lord said to me, go again. Go again. Love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loved the children of Israel. Though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisin, all the good things that the pagan gods offer to you. So he did. God says, go find her. Go find her among the lovers. And he goes. Can you imagine Hosea going searching? Gomer, Gomer, shouting. And when he's found her, look at what he did in verse 2. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a half of barley. And I said to her, you must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So I will also be to you. This is the love of God. He chases you. He's looking for all of us. He wants to restore you. Maybe some of us have been drifting away from God. Maybe we have been unfaithful to the Lord, not explicitly worshiping bowing down to other pagan images. But ultimately, it's deep inside, if you forget about God, if you're turning to other things, worldly things for satisfaction, and yet his love does not end for you and for me. And he's calling all of us. Hosea chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. Let's read together. Let's read together. This is what God wants us to do in his great love. Let's read. Ready, set, go. Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us that he may heal us. He has struck us down, and he will bind us up. After 2 days he will revive us. On the third day he will raise us up, that we may live before him. Let us press on to know the Lord. His going out is sure as the dawn. He will come to us as the showers, as the spring rains that water the earth. All he wants us to do is not for us to come as a clean, faithful person. We know that. Wow. How? Hosea found her in her unfaithfulness. All he is asking us is to come to him. Because he has paid the price. He has paid the price. Even though she was his rightful wife, he still paid the ransom. He still paid the cost to restore fully, to break every chain, to legally anything that binds us. He wanted to pay it all off so that we can be free and absolutely free. And before we sing we'll sing 3 more songs. But I want us to read these words of Jesus Christ. This is what Jesus said as he was preparing for the cross. John chapter 13, verse 1, he says, now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew his hour had come to depart out of his world to the Father, having loved his own, what did he say? who are in the world, He loved them to the end. This is our God. He loves you, but not only when we're good, not only when we're faithful, even when we're unfaithful like Gomer, constantly turning to our lovers. He says, I will love you to the end. And that end reaches us. And that end that Jesus was talking of was the end of His life. This is the same God who leaves the 99 sheep to pursue that one lost sheep because He loves that one that was lost. And this is the same God that touched the lepers. If you're a leper at that time, you don't touch, you don't even get near. But He loved the leper so much, He touched in love. And this is the same God that opens up the grave. You don't open up a grave. That's consecration. I mean, that is unheard of. You don't do that. Desecration. Decaying body lies in there. But Jesus, in love for Lazarus, He opens up that tomb. Because He is pursuing in love. Let us return to the Lord. Remind yourself of His love for us.